The Capital Wasteland is an area that has seen some intense history in its time. Players of the Fallout series will be familiar with the Capital Wasteland, as it was a territory we each would have explored over the course of Fallout 3. The region itself was quite a destitute and hostile place. Entire city blocks were cut off due to debris, super mutants and other horrors roamed the waste freely, and humanity was isolated to a few small pockets of settlements scattered across the land. However, hope for a better future came in the form of a large water purifier, capable of providing clean drinking water for the entire wasteland. The purifier sparked an immense conflict, as the Brotherhood of Steel and the Enclave clashed to consolidate control on the area, with the Brotherhood of Steel emerging as the victor. And as they celebrated their victory, the credits rolled for us, as this marked the climax of the game and the end to our journeys in the Capital Waste. Before I jump into the video, I figured I would do a TLDR for anyone who doesn't actually want to watch the whole thing. The Capital Wasteland is in relatively good shape. The region is administered by the Brotherhood of Steel effectively as a country. Its civilian population appears to live under their protection, but without any direct involvement in the actual administration of the civil society. Fallout 4 is set 10 years into the future, and provides a great deal of insight into the status of the Capital Wasteland. Our primary source of the region comes from the Brotherhood of Steel's Capital Wasteland division, who have travelled to the Commonwealth to engage the Institute. Therefore, to talk about the history and post-game status of the Capital Wasteland, we do kinda need to talk about the Brotherhood itself. In the wake of their victory against the Enclave, the Brotherhood found itself as the key power in the region. Having occupied the water purifier, they were able to curry goodwill and favour with the Wasteland by assisting in distributing purified water to its residents. They also found themselves in possession of incredibly advanced technology and weaponry, captured as spoils of war after defeating the Enclave. The future for the Brotherhood looked bright, until the death of Elder Owen Lyons. Leadership passed to his daughter Sarah, who was an incredibly capable leader. She, however, fell in battle within a few months after. The Brotherhood found itself in a spiral of decline, as the subsequent elders were elected and disposed due to their incompetence. The organisation itself remained divided, as a portion of its manpower had broken away to form the Outcasts, who remained openly hostile to their former brothers. And while the Brotherhood had also located the source of the super mutants to the region, it's unknown if they had been able to destroy Vault 87 outright. The super mutant presence was enough to reign as a threat, since they rallied around a leader known as Shepard. The tides for the Brotherhood and the Capital Wasteland itself began to turn due to the efforts of Arthur Maxson. Maxson was able to broker peace with the Outcasts, bringing them back into the fold and bolstering the forces of the Brotherhood. He was also able to strike a severe blow to the super mutants after killing their leader Shepard, ensuring the safety of an untold number of Wastelanders. Maxson's rule was directly beneficial to the residents of the Capital Waste. His style of leadership is seen as a combination of the standard modus operandi of the Brotherhood of Steel with the humanitarian ideals of his tutors, Owen and Sarah Lyons. He ensures his forces treat Wastelanders with respect and decency, and orders them to acquire advanced tech through trade of food and medicines rather than direct conflict. They were most likely able to provide immense economic prosperity to the region, as terminal entries indicate that they regularly protect caravans from wasteland threats via their vertibird fleet. Capital Wasteland residents such as McGreedy even state that mercenary work dried up, given the fact that most threats were eliminated by the Brotherhood rather than needing to be outsourced to contractors. McGreedy is also known to state that,
"I think this place looks bad. Go visit the Capital Wasteland sometime."
Which would tend to indicate that things aren't completely fine. I imagine this may just be a comparison to the pre-war devastation caused to the region compared to the relatively good state that the Commonwealth is in. Traversing the Capital Wasteland can be problematic due to portions of its city being completely cut off by debris, causing its inhabitants to navigate its dark and often dangerous subway systems. The Commonwealth, in comparison, has many of its buildings still intact, with many of the game's companions commenting on the relatively unscathed status of the Commonwealth. Not all Capital Wastelanders saw the Brotherhood as saviours, however. Dr. Madison Lee, for one, believed that the Brotherhood used the water purifier for their own purposes, which does hold some truth to it. While she and the original scientists had planned for it to be freely available to everybody, the Brotherhood came to control the purifier and used it to rally the people to their cause. Their confrontational nature has also become known all the way in the Commonwealth, since some residents such as Piper and Preston Garvey know who the Brotherhood are and how they operate. There's also some speculation to the fate of Rivet City after the creation of the Pridwin. A terminal entry states the following. As you know, in order to get the Prydwen rapidly to the Commonwealth, I had my engineering team pull our older power plant and replace it with an updated fusion plant that we pulled from that aircraft carrier wreckage. Now, obviously it could just stand to reason this is another aircraft carrier, and Rivet City is perfectly fine. The point I might make is that aircraft carriers are relatively few and far between, so while the odds are still fairly good that they could locate another, finding another one post-war with a working fusion plant would be tricky. Still, a lot of other points do indicate that Rivet City may still be standing. In the post-game DLC Broken Steel, Rivet City and the Brotherhood had formed a partnership. The Brotherhood was willing to trade some of the Enclave tech and supplies salvage in exchange for Rivet City supplementing their forces as they escorted caravans of water. While relations became understandably fraught due to the loss of life of Rivet City personnel, it is imagined that these would have thawed. Paladin Dance indicates that he ran a stall in Rivet City and was recruited from there on one of the Brotherhood of Steel's recruitment drives, which suggests they have a presence on the boat. Dance being a synth and obviously having implanted memories does call some of this into question, but he must have joined the Brotherhood somehow, which suggests this to be legitimate. Having mentioned Rivet City, we'd be remiss not to mention the other locations of the Capital Wasteland. While it has been stated to no longer be exactly canon, an epilogue from the Fallout 3 official game guide provides insight into the status of Megaton. Dated to be 10 years after the events of Fallout 4, Moira Brown discusses the success of her Wasteland Survival Guide, which is confirmed to have reached locations as far away as the Mojave. The town itself is described to have had a population boom, since Moira states she's had to redraw the town's boundaries on maps multiple times. We also know the Children of Adam cult founded in Megaton had managed to spread all the way to the Commonwealth and Maine, with its founder Confessor Cromwell spoken of with reverence by Children of Adam leaders such as Tectus. This naturally would indicate there'd be a sizable number of religious adherents to the town, since it'd be considered the birthplace of the religion. In Broken Steel, the ghoul settlement of Underworld was deliberately excluded from the shipments of purified water. The Brotherhood had seemingly made a point to not provide the water to groups they found to be hostile, such as slavers, raiders, as well as the ghouls. Given the Brotherhood of Steel's open xenophobia to non-humans, the fate of Underworld as a continuing settlement is sadly an unlikely event. While their members are able to recognise the difference between feral and non-feral, since they do tolerate some ghouls such as Hancock, many other Brotherhood of Steel members just simply don't care. The ghouls of Underworld had confirmed that the Brotherhood soldiers would shoot at them when spotted outside of Underworld, meaning that even if they do still exist, they'd just be isolated and vulnerable within their settlement. I'd also expand this to other ghoul residents of other settlements of the Wasteland, as I don't believe the Brotherhood of Steel would tolerate them to live alongside humanity. The fate of Canterbury Commons is indeterminate, as it's unknown who the victor was between the Mechanist and the Antagonizer. However, Canterbury Commons was the principal hub for the caravans that plied the routes of the Capital Wasteland. Given that Deacon himself claims goods such as water and technology are exported to the Commonwealth, this suggests there must be an organisation or settlement that has enough logistical know-how to manage and organise trade routes for such a distance. Daisy from Good Neighbour references the Capital Wasteland caravans directly, as she arranges for one to deliver the cure to McCready's son in the Capital Waste. While it obviously could be just another settlement, I do like to think Canterbury Commons is still the caravan hub, since it would have had the infrastructure and foundations to expand its operations so far in the space of a decade. Smaller settlements such as Girdershade may possibly still exist, since Sierra Petrovita references that people must have heard of her Nuka-Cola collection back at home. It's unknown what the status of this settlement would be, however, given the fact that only 2 people had lived there. One of them is now in the Commonwealth, and the other only lived there because he was keen on Sierra, so it's unlikely he would have stuck around as well. There are also many other locations across the region we're unable to comment on, such as Oasis to Paradise Falls. However, given the extreme nature of these regions, one being an almost Garden of Eden and the other being a slave hub, the fact that they have few references may indicate they are no longer around, or in the case of Oasis, haven't actually even been found yet. Segueing back to the Brotherhood, after Maxim was elected Elder, the Brotherhood began to reign as the true power in the region, which came primarily in the form of the Prydwen. Effectively a mobile military headquarters, the Prydwen was created at Adams Air Force Base by salvaging the components of the Enclave's mobile base crawler. The Prydwen allowed the Brotherhood to project their power over the entire eastern seaboard, without being limited to the Capital Wasteland. Their main base of operations is still referenced to be the Citadel, given that Paladin Danse and other Brotherhood members will speak of the location. It is a little ambiguous if something had happened to it, given that Brotherhood soldiers can be heard yelling, "Remember the Citadel." However, it may just be considered a symbol for the Brotherhood of Steel to fight for while stationed in a foreign land. The status of the Capital Wasteland under the Brotherhood of Steel could be fully ascertained via a terminal entry sent by a knight to a mother of a fallen initiate. In it, he states that you should be proud of the sacrifice he made for the sake of his country. By itself, this is a fairly innocuous line, but upon analysis, it indicates that the Capital Wasteland itself is considered a country to the Brotherhood of Steel. Indeed, the line itself indicates that the initiate's mother, herself being a civilian, would consider it to be her country also. This nation appears to have taken the form of a pugilistic military order, similar to the Teutonic Order or the Knights of St. John. This would make sense given the neo-knightly order of the Brotherhood itself, since members are designated titles such as Knight, Paladin, etc. It also would be the most natural form of government under the Brotherhood. Although it is evident that the civilian population and the Brotherhood are two separate entities, the Capital Wasteland division does allow the lines to blur between these two groupings. It appears evident that the soldiers are able to go on some form of military leave, given that terminal entries can also be found between a Brotherhood member and his wife, stating that he plans to return to her after the current tour is over. A random NPC, named the Scribe, is also locatable, who states he willingly chose to leave the Brotherhood behind. These may be due to the fact that compared to the insular Western divisions, the East Coast Brotherhood recruit from the Wasteland populations, which naturally would cause the lines to blur since its members know of a life outside of service to the Brotherhood. They do also appear to make non-military expeditions, as Danse states that they had attempted to run a quarry in the Capital Waste. It appears to be the case that the region is largely self-administered. Settlements seem to be comprised of self-sufficient, independent communities who supply the Brotherhood with supplies, goods, and personnel in exchange for ongoing protection. Ultimately, it appears evident that the Capital Wasteland is far safer than previously seen in Fallout 3, as although not every problem was able to be resolved within the space of a decade, it seems to be in a better state than it was previously. Its future is once again entirely determinant on player decisions and future entries to the series, since it's imagined the region may collapse into lawlessness if the Brotherhood are destroyed in Fallout 4. We may just have to wait and see if it makes another appearance or has any other references in the future.